So there is a time restriction for each video to be created, so I won't be showing you how the exact code is being typed, but I'll be explaining it with the logic and how each of these elements will be created. Now, to get on with the Java programming, we need to create, what we need to create is we will be having these fields like name, password, and the login button. So to correspond actions to each of these elements, we'll need to create three variables inside this Java code. So we'll be creating that first. So I have created these three names over here. Like I have a variable called name, I have a variable called password, and I have a variable that is declared of the type button called login. So now these are three variables that are created over here of these data types like edit text, and button. Now for the processing of each of these names, that means in our activity dot in our XML file, we'll be entering this particular name admin, or any other name for that matter, we'll be entering it over here. So this content should be stored in this variable name. So in order to do that, we basically have to relate this variable name to the entry that is being made over there. So we'll be using this one particular line of code. Please follow this. We are giving the variable name. So what you need to understand is this Android Studio basically gives hint for every option that you type to choose. For example, now this is basically understanding that I've typed in, and it is giving all possible options that can come over there. So it basically gives hints. So it can be better if you select it from the hints that is available over there. So the system can automatically detect what is being used. So I select the name, and it hints that it is an edit text matter over here. So I click on this, or rather you can press enter alone and it will accept it. So a name is selected, and equal to will be giving our content as edit text. See, automatically it does come. See, edit text widget it is. So we have discussed it over here. So it is an edit text widget. So we press the enter, and the function that we need to do here is find view by ID. So we are trying to see, it automatically comes find view by ID. And what is the ID? We are using an instant layout called r dot id dot, what is the name that we have given over there in the previous, what is the name that we have given the edit text name. So that has to be fed into over here, edit text name. So the available option comes over here. Now why didn't button come? Because button is of the button type and not edit text. So it understands that edit text type, there are only two entries over there. One is the edit text name and edit text password. So we choose the edit text name. So you can see that the system automatically detects the command. So similarly, password will also be given, password equal to it. Sorry. It would be, like I said, it would be better if we do the auto selection by pressing enter itself from the suggestion. Edit text, find view. Why is it known as view? Because if you remember, I told that each of these elements that are being used are called view, and then a group of all these things would be known as view group. If you remember, I taught you that before in the first module. So again, you need a thing for login. So login is given as a description over there, equal to button, it's a button widget, and find view by ID, r dot id dot, what is the name that is given over there? It will be button, a simple thing known as button. So once you click over there, the option comes and it becomes button. Okay, so that is the concept. So now what happens over here is you have mapped the elements that are created in this XML file over to this Java file. I hope that point is clear. Now what is the actual thing that should happen over here? We are actually receiving the content that has been entered over here. That means the name and the password over here. We need to validate it, and only then if it is validated, then it should move on to the next activity up, and that should happen only when we are pressing this button called login. So I hope you're getting the point. It is not just enough that you type your admin and password over here. You need to press this login button, and only then it will move into the next activity if it is valid. So what we need to do now is we need to create a program whether it is valid or not. So to validate, we are creating another one function over here, which is outside this main activity, but it will be called at a later point of time. So I typed this much code, and then you are going to have another argument, which is for the user password, because these are the two things that we need to compare. And we are opening it. We are opening this function, and what we need to do, we need to give a statement like we need to check if the username dot equals, no, it should be equal to admin. This is what we are saying, and we are using another valid condition, so that would be user password dot equals 1234. These are the two conditions that need to be checked. So what we do now is, now what should happen if this is checked? We should move to the next activity. So if these two things are valid, we have to move to the next activity, and for that I said we are going to use a thing called intent. Now what does intent do? Intent communicates between one activity to another activity in an application. So we are going to create an intent over here. So an intent will be created over here using the keywords that are coming up, and my intent, I'm defining it as int equal to new keyword is used over here, and calling up the class and passing the arguments. Now what are the arguments here? You are going from this activity to another activity. So what I do here is I refer to this activity that I'm using here. This, if you look over here, this is the activity that I had over here. So that is why I called it as main activity dot this referring to the point that it is being used right now, the one that is being used right now, and from there it should move to, I hopefully will be creating another activity which I'll be defining over here. I call it main, or let's call it as activity 2 alone. I don't want to call it main because we have already a main activity, so I call it as activity 2, and I define it as activity 2 dot class. Now this is highlighted in red because we have not yet created it. That is why it says we cannot resolve the simple. And then what we have to do is we have to give a command to start the intent. So start activity the command over here, and I prefer to start this intent after this particular point. So now this intent is defined to move from this activity to the activity 2 that will be created later, and I have to start this intent. So that is why this particular statement is used. Now what I do here is I have this particular statement. Now there is a case where you enter admin and the password as 1234 and this happens. Now what will happen if this is entered wrong? So we need an else condition also. So that else will be defined, and over here you can see that I'm creating something new. It is basically, so what do you expect? So you would be expecting that if you enter the wrong username or password, you expect a message to come up, and that message would contain like incorrect entry or invalid username or password. You need to check it, whatever it may be. So we are going to create a thing called toast. Now toast is a element in or a widget being used, so that would basically display a text. So now I'm typing it as make text get application context, which is, it is referring to this particular application, and then it should be displaying a text. So that would be like incorrect entries, try again. I am giving it like this, and I need to specify how long this thing should be displayed. So I would be giving a specification over here, toast dot length, it's long, and I'll be calling the method dot show, just specify over here. So Now this is the context over here. I'm making this toast and it should display incorrect entries, try again, for this particular duration, and the function being called as show. So that would end this main function, not the main function, the validate function. So I hope you're getting this point. You have defined the validate function. Now, when should this particular thing happen? It should happen when we are pressing the button. So this validate function will be called only when we are pressing the login button. So we need to view the status of this login button by giving in a command. We need to check the login button status. So we are calling that login button over there. Dot set on click listener. We are calling that function, and we are defining an argument like new view click on listener. So that has already come. So this calls in for a function on click, and in this on click we have to call this validate function. So what happens is we'll be calling this function over here. So validate. Okay, now we need to give the arguments, and when we give the arguments, what we need to do is we need to receive the arguments from this particular field that we have defined. So the name field will be receiving the admin text, and we need to convert that text to string. So we get the string using this function, and dot to string we are converting it, and we need to do it with the other thing also, which is a password. So we'll call in the password field. Password field automatically comes out. Dot get text function is there, and then we convert it to string, and that would be defining it. Now we have done the programming side over here. So I hope all these points are clear, whatever has been explained to you. And now you can see that the import files have increased in terms of numbers. So basically it is importing the widget, it is importing the view function, the content, and all these kind of things. So you can see as we are adding more elements to this particular thing, it will automatically import the required files. Now what we need to do now is we need to create a second activity. So if you look over here, we have created a situation over here where this if this condition is valid, it has to move to the next activity. So for that, what we'll do is we'll come to this Java file and we'll right click on it and we select new, and then we have this activity and we'll be selecting the empty activity. So this main empty activity should be given the name as we have given over there. So let's see what was the name given over there. It was an activity2.class. So I'll name it as activity2. So that would be the one over here. So I finish it over here, and you can see that this activity2 has been created. Hope you're getting it. Activity2 has been created along with its XML file, and we have the Java code over here. So what I'll do here is I'll create an XML and I'll just give a text view element over here, and that text view will be containing the text, which is the second activity. And now this will be displayed over here. This is the second activity. I'll increase the size of this text. So I'll come to the one of the properties over here. So I press the size button over here and it increases. I have the option of making it up to 36 size, and now this will be placed over here, and this will be given as this is a second activity, and it is placed over there. And now I come to this particular main activity also, and now our program is set in an entire way. We'll build this program and see if there are any errors. It will be rectified in the next video, but I hope the logic is clear as far as the programming is concerned. You can ask your doubts later. So we'll be ending this video right now.